So, I'll give out full transparency and say that I'm recording this video the night of Friday, March 11th. It is 8:44 p.m. Yes, it is currently the intermission between the Canucks and the Washington Capitals. The Geo that is talking to you at this very moment in time into this microphone does not know what happened in that game. He does not know what happens in the Canucks and the Tampa Bay Lightning game. So if anything goes down that is worth talking about, we're going to talk about that in subsequent videos that I record into the future but upload previously because, yeah, that's how scheduling a show works. I wanted to go out there and give props. Not Sat gives props, but I'm gonna give my own props to Jim Benning because, yeah, we've gone out there and we've ironically said things like, thank you, Jim. Oh, it's so good, the team that you've built. So fantastic, the contracts you've handed out and the signings you've made. But once in a while, in a blue moon, you know, I guess it is time to go out there and really say thank you, Jim, because sometimes he does things right. Not often, but sometimes. Let's go over Jim Benning's trade history as the GM of the Vancouver Canucks and take a look at one of the last trades that he made before getting fired. Literally the last trade that he made as the GM of the Vancouver Canucks. How poetic is it that this trade occurs with the Florida Panthers? These two teams, Vancouver and Florida, trading buddies for decades. Luongo, Bertuzzi, David Booth, Markstrom. A whole bunch of history here between these two teams, and oddly enough, the last one of Benning's Vancouver Canucks career is with this team as well. With this trade, the Vancouver Canucks were trying to right their wrongs and rewrite the past, because where one move like this is actually really good, it ultimately stands as a correction of one of the bigger mistakes that Benning made earlier on in his career as the Canucks GM too. We're, of course, referring to the 2016 NHL Entry Draft, where, with the 5th overall pick, the Vancouver Canucks selected out of the London Knights in the OHL not Matthew Tkachuk, but Olli Juolevi instead. 5 and a bit years later, the Vancouver Canucks traded Olli Juolevi to the Florida Panthers in exchange for Noah Juulsen and Juho Lammikko. Now, Olli Juolevi is no longer with the Panthers. He is on the Red Wings now, and he was claimed off of waivers by Yzerman and his crew just a few days ago. So you can go ahead and watch the videos that we made about Juolevi in Detroit to go over my entire thought process of this guy and his career. But long story short, and I'll try to keep it short. I don't usually succeed in doing that, but I'll try to do it short this time. Juolevi sucked, dude. Like, he was supposed to be this top 4, solid, two-way, all-round defender. With the London Knights, he had a lot of points because, I mean, he's playing with Matthew Tkachuk, Mitch Marner, and who the heck was it, Christian Dvorak? They were all really good. And Juolevi just happened to be there as well, getting points, winning championships, and it's why he was ranked to be a highly touted D-man for the draft, but he wasn't supposed to be the top guy. There were so many other players, Chychrun, Sergachev, Fabro, all available in 2016 as well, and Olli Juolevi went first out of all of them. Unfortunately, he gets drafted by the Vancouver Canucks, a team GM'd by Jim Benning that could not afford to whiff on any of these first-round picks. And for the most part, Benning whiffed on Virtanen and Benning whiffed on Juolevi, but the rest of them have been pretty good. Brock Besser, pretty good steal. Pettersson, steal. Hughes, a steal. And then you have Podkolzin, where the time isn't really passed further along enough in order for us to make a judgment there. But Juolevi was never really able to round out his game the way he was supposed to, and after a whole bunch of knee injuries and controversies about him maybe playing video games too much, that was a complete fabrication, I believe, but that still was a conversation Canucks fans were having. And after the training camp in 2021, where Olli Juolevi just completely passed out on the ice because he wasn't in shape, the guy got traded. The plug was pulled, and after 5 years of London Knights play, to Utica Comets play, to TPS Turku play, Olli Juolevi eventually was traded away. And for good reason, too. A lot of Canucks fans just didn't really think he was that good, and he was good enough to stick around. He played in the regular season in 2021, but after all that development time, he barely cracked the league in the first place, and he was only there for the taxi squad and the fact that they all got injured and riddled with the virus. He just wasn't good enough, plain and simple. And so, the Vancouver Canucks traded him away to the Florida Panthers for Juho Lammikko and Noah Juulsen. Now, starting out with Juulsen, he's honestly pretty serviceable. Like, for what Juulsen is, which is an Abbotsford Canucks defenseman who's helping out the younger guys, who is sort of a young guy himself. I mean, he's not too old, he's in his mid-20s, he's a pretty okay guy who can play at the NHL level when the Canucks need the bodies. Obviously, you don't want the Canucks to go through another bug like they did last year, where you're forced to play Olli Juolevi half the season and you're forced to play all your taxi squad guys night in, night out. But when Noah Juulsen gets the call, I'd say he's pretty okay in the role that he is given. Sure, he is not Quinn Hughes, but he is good enough. That is something that we could not necessarily say with Olli Juolevi, because even though he did have a few games here and there where he was okay, there just wasn't enough to move the needle to make Juolevi stick around in the lineup as a full-time Vancouver Canuck. So 1-for-1, Juolevi for Juulsen, you could go out there and say that it's actually a pretty big win already based off of the versatility that Juulsen provides. But of course, you're already screaming at your computer screen or your iPhone or your tablet right now watching this video because you know why I'm making this video here. Juho Lammikko, John Pond, as Parker's Pucks likes to call him, because Lammikko apparently means pond in Finnish, which is cool. Juho Lammikko playing on this line with Tyler Motte and Matthew Highmore is one of the best bottom sixers we have seen in the Vancouver Canucks system in the past few years. And it took him a while to get here. Like, when Lammikko started out, it took him a while to get his first goal on the year. He didn't really get the bounces. He was sort of unlucky here and there, but give it a few weeks of Lammikko settling in with the Canucks system, and all of a sudden, this guy's gone out there with 12 points in 51 games played, 18 points in 75 games is the projection over here. And this guy is just the pinnacle of what the Vancouver Canucks could use more of in the bottom of their lineup. He's making $750,000, and he's been scoring some pretty good minutes here and there. Why? It's because the guy works for them. You talk about Tyler Motte and the Matthew Highmores of the world, and how these guys are workhorses that put the pedal to the metal and they're always going. Juho Lammikko, I don't want to make it seem like he's like that exactly, but he's got a skill set and an awareness on the ice that complements those two very well, that you see the weird goals once in a while that go in that are just absolute beauties that shouldn't really be scored by fourth liners. Tips in front, through the legs goals, through the legs attempts. Again, I'm recording this video in the period intermission between Washington and Vancouver, so I'm fresh out of seeing Lammikko go through his legs and try to pot one in on Vitek Vanacek. It doesn't work, but hey, he tried. And the way Florida Panthers fans have been talking about Juho Lammikko, a lot of them have been saying similar things. Okay, Lammikko was good, like he was a pretty okay player when he was with us, it's just there was no room for him in the lineup. Florida's a pretty stacked team, and they're a pretty good team. So this guy doesn't really have the most opportunity when playing for the Cats. And so now in a Vancouver lineup where Jim Benning recruited this guy to be a bottom six center, a lot of people, myself included, didn't really believe in it at first, but as time went on, boy oh boy have we seen the best out of Juho Lammikko, and now this guy has gone out there and been one of the more reliable and consistent fourth liners the Canucks have seen in a very long time. I got a lot of people in the, the Juolevi waiver thing situation and all that. I saw people tweeting and commenting that, like, okay, the Florida Panthers traded away Juho Lammikko of all people, yet they lost the trade. How is that even freaking possible? Firstly, yeah, it's because you underestimated how bad Olli Juolevi is and how ineffective he would be at the NHL level. Unfortunately, you know, I don't want to make it seem like I'm dancing on his grave. I wanted that guy to succeed. I made videos defending that guy 5 years ago-ish. But, you know, good wishes are not enough to force the careers of NHL players to become good when they're destined to not being good. For Juho Lammikko, though, good for him to go out there and do what he is doing and solidify himself in the Canucks lineup. There's an entire controversy going on about Tyler Motte and the amount of money that he's going to be able to re-sign for, whether or not that goes up into the $2 million range-ish. But when you talk about contract re-signings and you talk about other guys, Lammikko making the amount of money that he's making right now, look, I trust Jim Rutherford and Alvin to go out there and probably give him a proper contract extension, and I say proper because I don't want to see any Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel, $2.5 million contracts going out there to bottom six players. But for Lammikko, this guy, he's likely going to be cheap, and he's likely going to provide a lot more value than that cap hit will provide. So for the last and final time, hopefully the last time, like unironically as well, thank you, Jim. You're trying to correct that mistake from 2016 when you drafted Olli Juolevi over everybody else, but after all that failed development time, it comes out with a pretty good story at the end. I'm not saying that Lammikko is Tkachuk or anything. That's definitely not what I'm trying to imply here. I think that I would rather have Tkachuk than Lammikko, to be honest, but yeah, you get what I mean. Talk to me in the comments all your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this video. Juho Lammikko, and bye.